Across the high desert, Tuesday has been much cooler. We've had some light showers, more like sprinkles, working their way through the high desert, and we're still in this active weather pattern. Even bigger changes are expected, especially as we go through the next 48 hours. Hey everyone, Darrell here from the Central Oregon Daily Weather Center. We're about to do a deep dive into your most reliable forecast. Look at the changes that have already happened, give you the latest details on that Zen fire that's just outside of Central Oregon. And we're going to talk about the potential of some thunderstorms through the next several days. So buckle up, it's going to be fun. Let's start off with what it looks like right here and right now. Across the high desert, we have a whole lot of cloud cover. There are some pockets of clearing, and there have been some showers working their way through Central Oregon. And for the most part, it's just breezy and much cooler than it was 24 hours ago. Now, when we go ahead and just focus on a couple of cameras, in the last 24 hours, these two cameras at different times and at the same time have been pointed at that Zen fire. Right now, we do not see any smoke. We just see that cloud cover, same as the rest of Central Oregon. And when it comes to rainfall in the last 24 hours, we've been getting a little wet. And that's definitely helpful because when you look just to the north of the Jefferson County, we're talking southeast Wasco County. That's where this fire is, about right here. Now, going forward through the next couple of days, we're looking at even more precipitation. So if this fire is still going on, we are looking at better conditions. So yesterday, it was just gusty. This fire took off pretty fast, and overnight, it was up to about 1,000 acres, about 8 p.m. yesterday. And by this morning, the National Interagency, the NIFC, the National Interagency Fire Center. There we go. I was trying to think of the acronym for that, but they upgraded it to 1,500 acres. Now, at this point, it is only 3% contained, and the current behavior is minimal. Just a couple hours ago, it was still active. They hadn't updated that, and as of right now, it does look like a human-caused fire, and the estimated cost is about $500,000. Now, when we look at this map, we do see that Clarno is right here, and this fire is about 5 miles to the south, a little bit to the southeast of it. So it's just north of the Jefferson County line, and the Wheeler County line is right here. And so it's something we've been tracking for about 24 hours. Now, there was never any evacuation notices issued for this, but it was something we were continuing to track. Now, as we go forward through the next couple of days, we're going to be tracking something different. Here's what we're looking at. Much needed rainfall is on the way. We are in an active weather pattern. That activity is going to crank up here through the next 48 hours, and we're looking at roller coaster temperatures. Today, 50s. By tomorrow and Thursday, highs in the 70s, then cooling again for Friday. Stronger winds are expected. More rain is on the way, and some thunderstorms are even going to be in the forecast. The best chance of thunderstorm activity is going to be Thursday, but also tomorrow afternoon and evening carry a chance of some thunderstorms. So let's go ahead and look at the road conditions. Right now, roads for the most part are dry. There are some spots where you've been catching some sprinkles, but that's about it. And when we look at the passes, some of those cameras have at times been showing wet conditions, such as Government Camp, Diamond Lake Junction, and Willamette Pass. You could just see those wet roads. But when we go ahead and look at satellite and radar, we're seeing a couple things and we're not seeing a couple things. For some of us, where we are getting some showers, it's just not showing up on radar. For some of that reason is the radar is rolling below the rain is below the radar, and we're partially in a radar desert, so it doesn't always show up. There's a radar in Pendleton, one just to the northeast of Portland, and one near Medford, and we're right in that area for Central Oregon, where sometimes with these light showers it just does not show up. Now we do see a whole lot of cloud cover, and we're looking at even more precipitation on the way. So through tonight, a little bit of extra shower activity is going to be possible. Then we catch some clearing. And by tomorrow, we start off cool to mild. We're talking 40s for lows with some 30s out there, then 60s by noon. By that time, though, more sunshine. That additional sunshine is going to help us warm up even more because it's going to be coupled with warm air coming out of the southwestern U.S. right into the Pacific Northwest. Couple all that together. And there's going to be the potential for some thunderstorm development by 5 p.m. You could actually see some of those thunderstorm cells developing on the future precipitation, that forecast model. And so when we just look at it, keep that at a glance theme going, the thunderstorm risk on Wednesday, well, we have a chance of thunderstorms for south central, central Oregon, all of eastern Oregon, going well into Idaho and even Montana and Wyoming. Now, we're not looking at anything severe during the next 24 hours, but for tomorrow, this chance of thunderstorm activity holds off until the evening, and it's actually going to be moving a little bit backwards from what it typically would move. Typically, it'd be south to north, or it would be west to east. We're actually going to be seeing these thunderstorms come in from the east to the west, and it's just following the counterclockwise flow of the low pressure that's just to our south. So winds coming across a little bit differently than they typically would, and that's going to drive any thunderstorms that develop right over that warmer landmass that we have for central Oregon after sunshine and warming. And then by Thursday, not only is there a risk of thunderstorm activity, but there's even a marginal risk or a low risk of severe weather, and that's from the Cascades of Washington and Oregon further off to the east, including Spokane and Lewiston. But most of central Oregon is in that marginal risk of severe weather. Now, we're not expecting any tornadoes or anything like that, but when it comes to this marginal risk or that darker green area, an isolated severe thunderstorm is going to be possible. We're talking some of these cells capable of producing winds of 40 to 60 miles per hour, hail up to an inch potentially, and we are looking at the lightning activity from some of those cells, not even all of them, could become abundant. Now, here's the kicker. Some of us don't catch these thunderstorms. Others don't even get wet. It's just going to be some scattered thunderstorm activity, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here through the next couple of minutes. But as of right now, a lot of that warmth, a lot of that moisture is sitting over Idaho and getting into Montana, and you can see that thunderstorm activity. For central Oregon, we're still on the backside of yesterday's cold front, where we dropped between 15 and 30 degrees in just 24 hours. And so we have that cooler air mass over central Oregon. This is part of an area of low pressure, and you can kind of see that circulation. Follow my mouse from Bend a little further to the south. There's a little bit of that counterclockwise circulation, and that's going to be what pumps that moisture and that warmth into central Oregon. But that low has to work its way a little further to the south as it continues to develop. Now, when we look at the bigger picture, there's a couple things we're tracking. First off, there's a broad ridge of high pressure out over the Pacific Ocean. That's going to be stretching, expanding into the Pacific Northwest by Friday. Then by this weekend, more sunshine is in the planner. Notice, though, over central Oregon, we have these white lines. These are isobars, or constant lines of constant pressure, equal lines of pressure, and within those they are pretty tightly stacked in some locations, and that means it is windy. But also, if we go ahead and pan this over a little bit, some of this activity is what we're expecting during the next couple of days. Not only do you have a couple cells that have the frequent lightning strikes, but you also have a couple cells that are warned with severe thunderstorm warnings. So it is something we are going to be tracking through the next couple of days. As of right now, don't have too much in the way of dry air over central Oregon because we've been getting some of these showers. Now, going forward through the overnight hours, we still have a chance of some showers to roll into central Oregon. At this point, it looks like it's mostly going to be sprinkle activity. With this high resolution forecast model, I'm going to be going back and forth, rocking that little bar, so that way we can really see what's going on and focus on a certain time frame. Then I'll look at a different forecast model coming up. But then by Wednesday, or tonight going into Wednesday morning, that's when we could catch some of those showers right through central Oregon, and this is going to be moving east to west, just like the motion that we're looking at by the time we get to Wednesday afternoon and Wednesday evening. This is just going to be in the pre-dawn hours of Wednesday. Then we get some clearing. And under that sunshine, temperatures are going to be allowed to warm a lot, from the 50s into the 70s with a few 80s by the afternoon hours. And then freeze frame, 3 p.m. We're starting to see a little bit of convection bubble up in parts of not just central Oregon, but eastern Oregon. Because remember, with this east to west flow, we're going to be tracking things that are developing over eastern and southeastern Oregon. And as they start to roll into central Oregon, it looks like this specific forecast model has a line of thunderstorms developing, working its way into southern Deschutes and southern Crook counties just as we get into the evening lineup. for the shows. And so through the evening hours, some thunderstorms are going to be possible, but these storms start to break apart as they move into central Oregon. But we have a chance of some thunderstorms. Then through Thursday, we catch some AM clearing. By the midday and afternoon hour, some convection starts up. And by the afternoon, we're looking at the potential of some thunderstorms. These are going to be scattered. Not everybody gets a thunderstorm activity. In fact, some of us don't get much rain at all. Others only get some sprinkles. Most of us, it will be gusty though. And this thunderstorm activity continues into the evening hours before it really starts to fizzle out. So that was a lot to digest. We're going to look at it one more time in just a little bit, but let's focus on a few other factors across Central Oregon. We're going to start off with relative humidity. At the moment, we have moderate relative humidity. It's nothing to write home about. It's not muggy, and it's not critically dry across the high desert. And because of the showers that we got last night, this is much higher than it was just 24 hours ago as well. And that was also had to do with the cooling that we saw. But this is definitely good for the firefighting conditions up at the Zen Fire in southeastern Wasco County. Now, high temperatures in the last 24 hours, mostly 50s, a few 60s out there. Paulina, this time yesterday, Paulina was at 73 degrees. And so that is a holdover from 24 hours ago. Right now, we're in the 40s and 50s for most. We still have 62 in Warm Springs. Look at this next graphic. It shows a temperature change of 4, even 2, to 23 degrees cooler than it was 24 hours ago. Now, this time yesterday, we were already seeing some of these big drops in temperatures. Paulina was the last holdout, and so that's why you see the biggest difference on the other side of Crook County, on the eastern side of Crook County, I should say. Now, for tonight, we fall back into the 40s with some 30s on the map, and then by tomorrow, we're topping out in the 70s. So we went from 70s and 80s yesterday to 50s today, back into the 70s, maybe a few 80s tomorrow. These ups and downs in temperatures are extreme, and it's going to bring a big change with it as these systems move through Central Oregon. Now, one thing that we're not too worried about right now is the UV intensity forecast. Because tomorrow brings more sunshine during the midday and early afternoon hours, it's going to be high UV intensity, but that's going to be also be with the warming before the storms. That's our primary focus tomorrow, is when, where, and how many of these thunderstorms develop during the afternoon and evening hours. By Thursday and Friday, we're not looking at too much of impressive UV intensity. Then by Saturday, it cranks back up to very high. Saturday will be the next day that you really have to worry about putting on some sunscreen, or at least slathering it and reapplying it every 2 hours because of the active weather pattern that we're in. And here's another view of it. This forecast model is showing us what we refer to as geopotential heights, and it really helps us focus on where the low pressure is, where the high pressure is, and you can really see that right now with this graphic. So over California, Northern California, Nevada, even the greater Reno area, that's where the bullseye for a low pressure center is. Then look out over the Pacific Ocean. That's where our ridge of high pressure is. You can see the difference in the colors, and that's why meteorologists use this forecast model, or this type of forecast model, to help when it comes to understanding what's happening and even analysis for forecast models. So this low pressure is going to stay in place over the southwestern U.S., impacting the Pacific Northwest through the next couple of days. It's also what drives the warming trend. Look at the eastern edge of this. That's pumping up much warmer air, and that warmer air is coming right into the Pacific Northwest. Now, it's backwards from how it usually comes. It usually comes from the southwest. This is coming from the southeast. That's not going to change much except the direction of the flow. And so we have a chance of these PM thunderstorms Wednesday, highs in the 70s with a few 80s. By Thursday, similar conditions, but a higher chance of thunderstorms because of the development of this stationary front. And a lot of the axis of thunderstorm activity is going to be along that stationary front, which cuts right into Central Oregon. And so that's why a lot of the forecast is focused on Thursday. That's why Thursday there's even that marginal risk of severe weather. Highs are still going to be in the 70s with a few 80s. But then by Friday, because of that system pushing through, it's almost, as it fizzles out, it almost breaks down as a cold front's rolling through the high desert to a cold front rolling through the high desert. So we get a dip in temperatures. It's going to be cooler, and we start to clear out. So between now and Friday at 11 p.m., much needed rainfall is on the way. This is definitely going to help drought conditions. We're not looking at snow in the highest elevations to help with that, but we are looking at precipitation. Wednesday, Thursday, even into Thursday night going into Friday, we have this chance of some thunderstorms during the next 48 hours. Then, by this weekend, a gradual warming trend sets up under tons of sunshine. So let's look at a different forecast model. This one is going to be the one that I typically show on air every night. And it shows similar conditions to the high resolution one. Tonight, some light showers rolling through the high desert. Wednesday afternoon, a lot of development phase. And that's where we start to get some of that convection. The warmer it gets, the better chance of thunderstorm activity, the more thunderstorm fuel, if you will. And then that line of thunderstorms sets up by the evening, rolls into the high desert, and starts to fizzle out. By Thursday, very similar conditions, but except for the development of that stationary front. And remember, that's the axis of convection with this next system. And that's where we see that thunderstorm development. By Friday, we start to clear out. By Saturday and Sunday, we're looking at a lot more sunshine. One more forecast model. This is a different one. It uses different physics for the forecast model just to compare. And it, too, shows some of those showers and thunderstorms by Wednesday evening. Better chance of thunderstorms Thursday afternoon and evening. And then by Friday, not much in the way of precipitation. Back to clearing, in and out clouds through the weekend, and a big warming trend sets up, especially early next week. That continues into Wednesday when we're looking at partly cloudy conditions. So that's day 8. Now, between now and Friday at 11 p.m., we're getting that much needed rainfall, and 2 different forecast models are showing very similar conditions with moderate totals expected through the higher elevations. That's good news. The bad news is tracking any thunderstorm activity. Now, wind gusts right now up to and a little over 20 miles per hour. Not too bad at all considering what we had yesterday. Actual wind speeds are more like 10 to 20 miles per hour. So we do have some of those gusts that are up to about 30 miles per hour. I misspoke there. Sorry about that. And that was in the forecast. And so we keep these breezy conditions through most of tonight, tapering off during the early morning hours. It gets gusty at times Wednesday, and it's going to be breezy at times by Thursday. Then by Friday, stronger winds are expected. So for tonight, expect 40s and 30s, some 30s. By tomorrow, some PM thunderstorms, 70s and a few 80s with a few 60s even possible. But a quick look at your 7-day planner shows that the roller coaster temperatures continue. The most active of our weather pattern is going to be here through the next 48 hours. Friday, some lingering showers wrap up. Then we're back to sunshine. Then our next warming trend that brings us back to either side of 80 degrees by this time next week. Overnight lows, getting close to freezing by this weekend, but not everybody getting there. So your weather headlines for this Tuesday, May the 26th. An active weather pattern through Friday. Showers and breezy afternoons are expected, and a midweek warm-up is expected before thunderstorms start to develop. That's the latest in weather. Join us tonight on Central Oregon Daily News, one of the latest headlines and your most reliable forecast. See you then.